Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. My name is Roel Dionisio, alongside with my co-host Francois. How are you doing, Francois?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing very well on this fine morning. It is super early for me, as it always is.
Yeah, I see that.
But at least I'm awake. I actually woke up pretty easily this morning, I think, because yesterday I did have I don't know. What I did differently was I actually worked out a bit, and then maybe that made me sleep easier last night.
And so this morning you're all freshen up, wake up.
I'm all loaded with coffee here. I did a lot of stuff this weekend, cleaning out my area, making it more useful for me. Started using my 3D printer. It's all being, I'm getting used to the whole working from home every day under this shelter in place thing.
Yeah, I think everyone is, slowly but surely getting used to it.
Yeah, so it's a different feeling, but it gives us more time to work on this podcast and come out with some episodes. So in this episode, we are going to talk about UniFi for small and medium business, because it is a popular selection for companies, right?
Yes. Yes. So we'll talk about that, but I think it's mainly because of the price and the set of features that you get for the price.
Yeah, I agree. The price factor is appealing, and then it is one of those solutions that I guess looks sexier than other solutions, right? Especially with all the features they plug into it, and they do more than Wi-Fi, right? So they got switches, firewalls, they've got point-to-point devices, a whole lot of different solutions for you. So we thought we'd look into this. I actually did an installation not too long ago, and wanted to help recap the solution with that as well, because it's got some information in it, and we wanted to do kind of track some of the same kind of questions that were being asked by the community, and also dive into some of the important criteria when it comes to selecting or looking at UniFi as a potential solution.
Yeah, and also they have really good marketing. Like if you go on their website, it looks so good. It makes you want to buy the stuff right away.
It definitely does. That's what I mean by it looks very sexy, right? They definitely really hit a good point with a lot of users, and they actually have a really strong user community, which I guess we can kind of touch upon that later. But it is interesting what Ubiquiti is doing, especially when you go to their website and they show you these features that are going to be coming soon, right? And I'm looking at it right now, and they're showing off some of their augmented reality features that's going to come out soon, where you could just use your phone and kind of browse your switch physically, just looking at it with your phone, and it starts telling you what's on the ports. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know how useful it actually is, but the fact that you could do that soon in the future is interesting.
Yeah, that looks pretty cool.
But wow. I guess if we for those who are not familiar with UniFi, that is the actual network solution for either SMBs. It's also popular for the home network because, again, of the price factor. And UniFi is what we're going to be looking at with the indoor. They have indoor and outdoor access points that could be used to deploy a wireless network. And so if we look at some of the questions that's coming from the community, a lot of people want to see what the value is in UniFi. And for me, that value is not having to deal with any kind of licensing, right? You buy it once, you buy the hardware, and then you could use it. It's that easy, right? And you could use it without paying some sort of monthly subscription or yearly subscription, and you just have access to all those features that come with the hardware. What do you think about that, Francois?
Yeah, I think that's a very appealing point for customers. They see the set of features you can get at the price point that they're selling the equipment at, and if you compare that to enterprise solution, it's like a fraction of the price. So usually the mindset is, okay, we'll buy it, even if they don't have the same support as. We're not going to get the same support as the enterprise solutions. And then if something goes wrong, we can just, buy the hardware again and then replace it. And it's still going to be cheaper than, buying a subscription and putting money to support every year.
Yeah, and that's where your cost savings are going to come out of is being able to just buy the hardware and not worry about the operational cost from the vendor. But there are some pros and cons when you do that. But when you look at UniFi and what they give to you, there is a lot of pros that come out of that, especially when it comes to the features that they provide to you, the analytics, and also some of the monitoring. So some of the pieces that make this solution work is you really got to buy into what's called a cloud key. And this cloud key could be a little small appliance, which it just gets powered via PoE. They also have a larger cloud key that has more more capacity is what I would say. So there's different versions of that cloud key, the hardware piece, or you can install that as a VM on your computer, for example. So the flexibility that you get, I do know browsing through the forums that some people opt to just make it a VM. And some people say, I have a computer that's on 24/7, so I will just install it on my computer because it's that easy to run the cloud key. And cloud key is really your full management controller. It's your controller for your network. And it does more than just manage your Wi-Fi network, but it also manages everything else. So your network switches, your firewalls that come from Ubiquiti and the UniFi line. And so that's the I think the key, right? The cloud key. And the cloud key makes it, we'll go into this, but it does give you some cloud management features. So I just wanted to touch upon that, because as we talk about some of these features, it's going to require the cloud key.
Yeah. And it's, the cloud key makes it easy because that's a piece of hardware you buy and you connect to your switch, or you connect to your network, and then you have the hardware or the software built into the cloud key. But what I've seen customers do is, like you said at the beginning, they could just allocate a VM. If they already have some VM space, they could just allocate a VM and then install the same software into a VM inside that network. And in this case, they don't need the cloud key. The cloud key just makes it convenient and easy, I guess.
Yeah, it makes it so much more easier to manage your network. And that's for sure, because of having your devices be seen by that cloud key just gives you that single pane, right? That single place to look at and manage your devices. And because of that cloud key, it gives you the ease of scale. And by scale, meaning you could add multiple devices, which can be managed by the cloud key. And then you could also create sites. So if you've got other offices, for example, you could actually add that as a separate site within cloud key and manage those devices separately. But there is a little bit more to it than just adding devices at a different site and then having that show up in cloud key, which we can dive into a little bit later too. And so, did you want to say something, Francois?
I was going to say also they have two different versions of the cloud key, and the second version can actually, I think it can handle the video cameras that they have, and it acts as a NVR as well. So you could have everything built into that piece of hardware, and they can all take care of your APs, your switches, and also your video cameras.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because some people want to bring in security, and they might not want the traditional way of using cameras, which requires another NVR. But if you've got UniFi already, you could use your cloud key as an NVR, and then now you've got everything kind of in place with a single vendor. If that, I guess that's a big benefit for small and medium sized businesses, is not having to buy so many different vendors to solve different problems, right?
And then recently they came out with a new device, which is called the UniFi Dream Machine. And inside the Dream Machine, you pretty much have the firewall. So it's a security gateway. It's also a controller. So the software you would have in a cloud key, you'd have it in the Dream Machine as well. And you can also have your NVR, and you also have a bay to put a hard drive to save those videos coming from the NVR. So it's kind of like a all-in-one solution that you can set up in your network, and it can be like the head of your network, and then to that device you can attach switches, and then to the switches you can attach APs and cameras, and you can have, like you said, they have everything to have a full stack solution for your network.
Yeah, and even though this Dream Machine has all these features built in, it is still at an affordable price, right? Compared to an enterprise solution, where actually an enterprise solution might not even have all of those features into one solution. And so this is why a lot of people see UniFi as a really good product to purchase for their network, because you get a lot of bang for your buck there. There's so much that you get with the management being easy with this cloud key controller. The hardware appliance can actually be powered via PoE, so that's actually a good plus as well, since you got to attach it to your network switch. And then the cloud key enables that hybrid cloud management, which means you could remotely manage this network from anywhere. So we'll go into that as well, because I do want to describe our experiences trying to manage the UniFi network and how easy it is. Some of the other questions that people had in the community, the Clear to Send community, they wanted to talk about mesh, right? So mesh is an important topic because cabling is a really expensive piece when it comes to trying to run cable, right? If you want to run cable somewhere, that the cost of running cable can be very high, depending on where you're trying to get it to and how long that cable is going to be, how difficult it is. And so the UniFi access points, from what I've seen by default, they have mesh capabilities enabled. And so when I was deploying the last UniFi installation, one of the APs actually didn't have a good, there was something wrong with the cable for some reason. It was enough to, I couldn't remember what the installer did, but it was being powered by PoE, but it wasn't getting to the network. So there was something wrong with the cable. And I noticed that it had automatically meshed with another access point. And then because of that, it was actually connected to a network, a UniFi switch, and the UniFi switch came online via the access point, which was connected via mesh. So I thought that was nice to have, because I did have some sort of cabling issue there, and I think it was to the switch. Actually, that's why the AP came online, and that's why the switch came online as well. And I was able to access both, and then determine that there was a cabling issue. And when you're looking at it through Cloud Key, it actually does tell you that it is connected via mesh, and you can see what the backhaul is, which AP it's connecting to, and then view the user experience as well. If the device is connected behind that AP via the mesh as their backhaul, if they're having any kind of problems. So I thought mesh it worked for me, and I didn't have any problems there, and having it automatically work was a big plus. I know a lot of people aren't into mesh, but for small, medium businesses, sometimes mesh could be the only option to extend the network, the wireless network, to a location without any wires. Support wise, a lot of people were asking, what kind of support do you get from Ubiquiti? And from what I could see, it is lacking in terms of getting direct support from Ubiquiti. And their support is primarily based on the community forum, which could get, it's not exactly the best place to get support, because from what I've seen on the UniFi community forum, there is a lot of bad advice that gets thrown around, especially when people start talking about wireless and how wireless works. Some people just offer advice that they know has worked for them, and that could mean putting APs on channels you shouldn't be putting them on, designing max power, like all sorts of things, right? That would require design. But for most, I guess, really small businesses, it probably isn't a big factor. But if you want to be a good neighbor to other wireless networks, you would want to at least configure settings that will be both good for you and the neighbors. But I generally would not advise against using the community forum unless you've got some serious issues, right? Where you couldn't get things to connect for some reason. And so you need maybe some advanced troubleshooting. And that's where the community members could help out in trying to get those devices connected by offering you advice. Now, that doesn't mean that these members are going to be responding to you within, an hour or two. You do have to wait for someone to respond and then give them more information, and you have this back and forth via forum. So it's not an ideal support scenario, but it may be good enough for small and medium businesses.
What they do have for them is they have a lot of article on their support website where they kind of guide you through some of the process of setting up or troubleshooting different issues. And I guess we'll talk about that later, but that's what I used to troubleshoot some of the stuff, some of the issues I had when I was, setting up the UniFi stuff in my house.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to add, is they do have knowledge-based articles for you to look at and a whole lot of other tutorials in order to get started. But if you wanted to talk to somebody from Ubiquiti, I think that would be a challenge, right? So there isn't. I could not easily find a number. They don't put something up that goes, "Hey, call us directly and let us know, your serial number of your Ubiquiti device." There's nothing like that, and I think that goes back to providing the hardware at such a low cost, because there isn't much overhead costs for them, especially when it comes to providing support. They don't have a large support, like a call center of people waiting to answer your questions, right?
Yeah, it says for technical support, go to our support page.
Yeah. So that's something to consider if support is a big thing for you. Either find somebody that knows UniFi very well, or rely on the community forum. Okay, so let's talk about some of the important criterias for UniFi, and this is kind of the same criteria that we're going to use for other episodes when we talk about Wi-Fi solutions for SMB. So the first one is price and the ease of procurement, right? You can purchase UniFi easily straight from Amazon. You could actually also purchase this through a reseller if you wanna go through a reseller who understands a product line and can help you determine what kind of hardware you need. Then you could go through a reseller, or you could go through the Ubiquiti store. I believe you can buy this straight from UI.com, which is Ubiquiti's website. Just click on buy, and then you can start shopping around for whatever you need. Everything there, you just they have a nice layout of what things look like. They even say, here's the recommended the deployment. Here's a typical deployment diagram. So they kind of guide you down what you should get for your network. And then all you got to do is just add it, and then you could buy, right? So they have all the pricing there. How many units do you want to buy? You could buy it as a single unit, a 3-pack, 5-pack, that kind of thing for wireless networks. And again, it's specifically priced very low for small, medium businesses, even for the home. I would even say if somebody wanted to upgrade their wireless at home, I'd say spend a little bit more money and get one of these access points from Ubiquiti.
Even if you look at the Dream Machine, which is, everything in one box, and it also provide Wi-Fi. If you take the smaller version of it, it's I think it's $300.
Yeah.
So I mean, for your house, it's $325. So you could use that for your house, and then you can even have the cameras. The cameras are $378. So if you compare that to other type of camera solution for your house, it's roughly the same price.
Yeah, it's actually not a bad solution. I would definitely recommend this to somebody for upgrading their wireless network and then some, right? Getting some other value out of it. A typical 11AC access point is just $158. And one of the things I like about the UniFi solution is they actually support DFS channels, and that gives you a lot more channels to use when you're deploying your wireless network, right? So I can even see this being deployed in larger networks, larger than small and medium business size networks, as long as you design everything the way it should with your network switches and all that. So taking everything into consideration with the capacity and your routing requirements, you could build a pretty robust network with a UniFi solution.
Yeah. The thing you have in terms of pricing, the thing you have to remember is that you will need the some sort of software locally to handle all the equipment, right? So if you want to use a cloud key, then that's an additional cost you have to think about. If you want to install the software on a machine locally, I guess it's free. So you have to think about that, I guess, for your pricing. And also you have to think about the number of sites you have, because you will need this piece of software everywhere, or you will need some sort of VPN solutions if you don't want to install it everywhere.
Yeah. So you have to add more hardware, right? If you want an ideal setup. If we talk about the cloud key, the appliance versus installing it on your own computer, I would say take a look, calculate how much it would cost to keep your computer running 24/7. Typically, the power requirements for that is going to be a lot higher than using a cloud key Gen 2, which just uses PoE, right? So the cloud key Gen 2 is $188. To me, I think that would be a much better cost-effective solution than running it on say your Windows or MacBook computer that's sucking up a lot of power to just operate. And that way, if you have to reboot your computer, you can, right? Without worrying about bringing down your management network. And so that's something to consider. When you're trying to figure out which is the best way to go. And so those are the kind of things that I don't think Ubiquiti will tell you. They will give you the option, so you can buy it or you can download the software, but I don't think they typically tell you here are the pros and cons of doing either of them, right? But I would say at the cost of the cloud key is very affordable, so why not go that route? And then they offer even in-wall AP units, which are great for aesthetics, right? And they also have ports on the bottom of those in-wall units, and those are only $90. So the pricing, I think, is ideal with the amount of different solutions they have available. And
that's the in-wall AP. That's the one I'm using right now to record these episodes. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're actually recording this on a UniFi network. And so you're being bold.
Yeah, exactly.
You just set it up, right?
Yeah, I slept last night, so I could test it out for the recording.
All right, so that's that's a good segue to go into ease of configuration. So, Francois, why don't you talk about your experience in configuring your UniFi AP?
Yeah, so we actually had received some of the UniFi equipment from, back in the days when we did an episode with Ubiquiti, talking about their, high density deployment. So I had a switch, a UniFi switch that I use actually in my lab, and then I connected the AP to that switch. But AP didn't really, didn't work at first. And what the controller was telling me is that I needed to upgrade the AP. So, but I couldn't upgrade it directly from the controller because I think the controller was up to date, and I had, a lot of versions, like too much of a gap of a version difference between the AP and the controller. So I had to actually SSH into the AP and upgrade using an upgrade command that you can use to upgrade directly from the AP. And so when I did that, the upgrade worked, but I still couldn't manage it from my UniFi controller. And what I had to do is I had to actually reset the configurations to the default configurations. And then after that, I had to re-upgrade it, but from the controller at that time. And then after that, I was able to manage the AP on my controller. So it took a little bit of time. So when you just have to be careful, I think, when the AP is not using the same version as the controller that you're using. The upgrade process is not as straightforward as it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they guide you. I use the knowledge-based articles on their support website to go through the process. So they kind of guide you through the process, and if you know how to do it, it's not that complex. But if you're just doing it for the first time, it could be a little bit of troubleshooting there.
Yeah, because they do offer an app that you could install on your phone to help go through the installation. I mean, you could even install the Cloud Key with an app on the phone, just uses Bluetooth to connect to it, and you could start creating your network. I think you and I just we had similar experiences. For you, you had an AP that you've had for a while, so I can see why the software versions, there were some issues there. But I also ran into a similar one where when I was installing it, I couldn't get some access points to join the Cloud Key controller. And I did also have to log into those devices remotely and issue those informed commands to try to get them to join the Cloud Key. I also had to upgrade them manually as well. And that wasn't for all APs. That was just maybe for a couple of APs. So that the ease of configuration can be very easy, but once you start having to troubleshoot, you can get into some more complex troubleshooting there, and then trying to get those configured properly, requiring command line is very it's not user friendly for SMBs, right? A lot of times SMBs, they don't have a technical person doing this, so having to even direct them on how to do something via command line can be very intimidating, and also could easily screw up the installation. And so you have to be very cautious as an SMB to troubleshoot things via CLI. And I think that's where you'd have to dive into that community forum again and really get people to confirm what you're trying to do. But yeah, going through the initial setup should be easy, right? Maybe if you buy everything brand new, because then everything from Ubiquiti would have later versions of code. And then when you set it up via, you could set it up via the app on your phone, or when you plug everything in, you could actually just browse to the web GUI. What's nice is the Cloud Key, the Gen 2 one that I got, has an LED screen, so you can see the IP address of the Cloud Key and just log into it via the web interface. And so I did it that way. I thought I didn't want to do everything through a phone. I kind of looked at it initially and I was like, I'd rather type on a keyboard. And so I did it that way, and then got all the devices to connect, got all the devices to upgrade their firmware through the Cloud Key, and then set up the Cloud Key to enable hybrid cloud. And so the Cloud Key allows you to remotely manage your network, and it is a hybrid cloud feature. And I think this part may not be the easiest part to configure because you do have to enable it. And then with the assistance of the Cloud Key, you can log into unifi.ui.com. You create an account there, a UniFi account. And then you could, using Google Chrome, for example, you could, in your account, look for that Cloud Key. And then it adds that Cloud Key as a network you could manage. And then when you're not on the network, you could manage it remotely. Like, let's say you were, traveling somewhere and you needed to make a change or look at something. You could launch the Cloud Key through your browser, and it uses 3 methods. It uses WebRTC. It could use a host name or an IP address. So WebRTC is the easiest version. That creates that connection between your local Cloud Key and UniFi Cloud. Hostname, you would have to configure yourself, right? So you need to take whatever public IP address is being used on your network. You got to do port forwarding for your Cloud Key, and then basically assign that to DNS for DNS resolution. Or you could just port forward the IP address to your public IP address for your Cloud Key and be able to manage it that way. I like the WebRTC because then I don't have to do the other configurations, but you just got to consider the security that goes behind this, because it is not a true cloud management, right? You're not hosting your management with UniFi. It's not stored on their servers. It's not managed on their servers. It's really a hybrid cloud where UniFi Cloud is kind of that bridge to your network.
Yeah, exactly. And what I wanted to add here for the ease of configuration is so that the piece of software you have locally, so either on the Cloud Key or somewhere else, has to be reachable by all the access points that you add to your network, right? And one day I came across a deployment where the customer had different sites, and different sites had different internet connections, so they were on different networks. And so what we had to do is we had to set up VPN connections between those remote sites and the main site where we had our Cloud Key. So they could actually, the remote site, the APIs we install at the remote sites could actually discover, the Cloud Key via the network.
Yeah.
And you have to configure your DHCP options. It's similar to what you would do in enterprise space for, with the IP helpers and so on. But you had to, or option 43, sorry. But you had to configure your DHCP options to, help the AP to find the controller. So you specify the IP of the controller in the DHCP options.
Yeah, that kind of configuration starts getting more complicated, right? Because you got to, again, set up VPN. And if you're using all UniFi, you're going to have to set up the VPN via the settings. And then it can be cryptic for a lot of people trying to set up VPN, site-to-site VPN, but it can be done. So it's not as complicated as some of the big vendor firewalls, for example, but you do have to understand like networking to get this up and running.
And I guess that's what the point I was trying to make is, comparing to the solution we reviewed last week, the Ingenious Cloud, where all you need is internet access. You connect the AP and then you can manage it from the cloud right away.
Yeah.
Here, you're going to have to work a little bit more in order to set up the network. So it's not as easy as, plug and playing the AP.
Yeah, because again, it's not a true cloud management. It's a hybrid cloud, and the controller is sitting on your on premises versus in the cloud.
Yeah.
All right. So with the cloud key, you can create the sites. I think we talked about that already. If we talk about the Wi-Fi configuration, the Wi-Fi configuration for UniFi is very simplistic, right? It's using defaults. So when you're setting up the network, there is this checkbox which you could enable for auto optimization, right? So what does that even mean? I could not find what that meant. What is the auto optimization? And so it's a little on and off button that just says automatically optimize the network and Wi-Fi performance. And so it's either off or it's on. And I'm not sure exactly what it's doing to optimize it. I don't know if that also means enable band steering. So that way most devices connect via 5 gigahertz. And I don't know if that changes data rates automatically. I just couldn't find the documentation that easily to determine what that meant.
Yeah, sometimes they would give you a little bit more detail, like they have an option called high performance devices, which means that they will pretty much steer the high performance client devices to 5 gigahertz only. Right, so they have a couple of advanced features like that. They also have fast roaming as in a beta version.
Yeah,
but I think everything else is pretty basic. You can assign VLANs to SSIDs, which is pretty nice in the enterprise space. But I mean, yeah, everything else is basic. Like for the security, for instance, the options you have is open, WPA personal, and WPA enterprise. You don't have WPA3.
You don't have OWE.
Yeah, you don't have that.
I would say that Ubiquiti is not one to drive these types of features. So they very much stick to stable features. I mean, the fact that 802.11r is still in beta is still questionable to me, but being that most networks nowadays need that roaming capability, I think I wouldn't want that running as a beta feature in my network, especially if you're dealing with a lot of low latency applications, right? So it's kind of hard to justify. I mean, even some of those devices don't even support 11R. I guess that's why it's still in beta. Most devices aren't really great at roaming to begin with. But the features they do give you over the wireless network are pretty basic. When I look at the network that I deployed and seeing some of the APs that are on auto, right? So it doesn't have the capability to turn off 2.4 radios if it senses that there's too many. And it does auto select the power. So you could, when you configure the channel width, it will just kind of select any channels and it'll you'll run into OBSS issues, right? So some APs will operate on, let's look at like channel 46. It's going to pick 48 as the primary channel. So you'll get the option, or you'll get the view of all your APs and the radio and the channel that it's using, and it'll say 48, -1, meaning it's using that second channel as a primary channel versus I prefer to have my primary channel, the primary 20 megahertz channel, as a lower channel to avoid some of that OBSS. But in auto, it just kind of picks whatever it wants.
Yeah, so it's like you said, it's basic. And also, I think what we should mention at this point is they do not offer Wi-Fi 6 access points yet.
Yeah.
And so again, they're not working on it.
They're not one to jump on those features right away. I think they like to wait and then just build on what they already have versus adding. I mean, they built something like the Dream Machine, and I would have thought maybe that would have had 11AX, but maybe they're waiting for it to actually be ratified. I don't know. It could be something else. You could statically set the channel and transmit power on these APs. So the channels is pretty easy to configure. You can set that. When it comes to transmit power, there's profiles. So there's a high, medium, and low. I don't know what those mean, but you could set the power to custom and use a dBm value, and that's what I opt to use. I had no idea what high meant, what value medium is set to, and what low is. That could be a range. So I played around with the auto and the manual and the custom settings, and it seems to be doing okay. I had some APs on auto. The one thing that I do like when it comes to UniFi is being able to see your channel distribution. So you could see how many access points are on which channel, and then it'll give you some sort of indicator where it'll turn a different color if there's too many APs on that channel. But I haven't reached that different color yet, not even for 2.4.
Yeah, they don't tell you what the color means. It's green for me, so green is good, right?
Yeah, green actually means good. There's yellow, which means it's fair, and then red, it's poor. Now, again, I don't know how to say what is fair. Like
for some of the dashboard, they tell you, like for what did I have? I had the retry rate. They tell you, green is between 0 and 40%, and then fair is between 40 and 66%.
Yeah, I'd say. So, yeah. When I see
40 is pretty high.
I thought it was really high. I would say that, but I guess that depends also on how many clients are on that access point, right? Because you could have a high retry rate but still be able to browse the internet just fine. Because I have one AP that has a retry rate of 60%, and just this morning it says it's good.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's been fair. So you got to take a look at what the management system tells you, but you got to verify it, right? And see whether or not it's a problem. I guess we can go into reliability. So we kind of touched upon this in the previous discussion, because we talked about how reliable maybe firmware upgrades were, and we had to factory reset those APs, and that is something that they put in their documentation, where if all else fails, you kind of just factory reset the device and have it rejoin whatever cloud key controller you have. Within the cloud key controller, you could actually cache some of the firmware, so that way not every device has to go reach out to the cloud in order to download that firmware. Now, I did say when I did that in my deployment, I ran into problems. For some reason, some devices just didn't upgrade very well. And so I ended up deleting the firmware that was downloaded to the UniFi cloud key. And I just had all the devices download their firmware directly from Ubiquiti itself, from their website. Some devices I had to download the firmware to my computer and then upgrade the AP. So reliability, I think firmware upgrades could be, they make it easy through the GUI, but I felt that the process wasn't, it wasn't stable. It didn't, some devices would upgrade and then not join back to the cloud key. And you had the same issue, right, Francois?
Yeah. And it makes it makes you not confident in upgrading your equipment, Yeah.
I have a upgrade now. It keeps telling me there's an upgrade. And I'm like, I don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you just leave it in place, even if you're not using the latest version. And that could create some security issues if they're patching some security, issues.
Yeah, and it does bring down the AP as well. So it's not, it's like any other vendor. When you're applying upgrades, parts of the network are going to go down. You do have the command line interface if you really need it. So at least there's that, because sometimes without being able to SSH into the device, you won't know what's happening, right? And so being able to have access to CLI actually gives you some more visibility and a lot more flexibility when it comes to making increasing the reliability of these devices. Because if the firmware upgrades just kept failing, but you couldn't figure out why, then I would be super frustrated in trying to get this to work. And then your only option would be to factory reset it, which sometimes you might not even be on site to do that. And who can you rely on to try to factory reset these devices?
Yeah, I mean, for SMBs, you shouldn't have to, to SSH anymore into equipment and stuff. Like, I think it should be pretty easy and straightforward nowadays with all the tools we have available to us, even to set up a network. But it's nice that you have it if you need to troubleshoot, for sure. Some vendors, some enterprise vendors don't let you SSH into the APs.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not naming anyone.
and when they're cloud managed, like truly cloud managed, native cloud, then you typically don't need a CLI. You can do everything as long as that AP can get a connection to the cloud. You can do everything through the cloud management. Now, when it comes to the actual equipment that you get, I would say anything you rack from UniFi is pretty good. Like the hardware itself is solid. It's not a cheap piece of equipment. But I found that when you get an access point, they seem kind of flimsy, right? They're made of plastic. The plastics can break easily. To me, some of them, I don't know if they would hold up outdoors for an extended amount of time because of the material looks cheap to me. But I mean, it held up pretty well when I was using the equipment, but it's one of those things where time will tell, right? When it rains, is water going to get in there? That kind of thing. So hardware reliability, I would say I have not had any APs fail on me yet. I've had maybe that firmware upgrade issue, but I still managed to get it up and running. And over time, I haven't had an AP fail on me yet.
Yeah, for me, I had my security gateway fail on me, which was more of a concern. I'm not too sure what happened with it, but it's not working anymore.
Yeah, and so that's where some people would rely on support, right? Because the security gateway is the gateway to your network, and you don't want that failing on you, because then now you don't have a security gateway, and how long are you going to be down for? Do you have to buy an extra one just to have there with you just in case of a failure, or it's not.
I mean, for the price of it, you could do that.
Yeah, you could, but it's still not the cheapest thing, right? I mean, you can get some of the smaller security gateways are really inexpensive, but if you get those 19-inch rack mount ones, that's when the price starts to go up, right? It's the switches and the security gateways where price will definitely increase in the cost. So that's something to consider. But I thought the access points were probably, even though they're made cheaply with the plastic material, you could replace them easily. You don't need, I don't think you need any kind of warranty on them. It's just maybe have a couple on site extra just in case, and then just replace it.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen customer do that a lot. Yeah.
And so I don't know, other things you want to add to reliability. I mean, having the mesh capability there adds some kind of reliability in order to maintain that connection. But other than that, I thought it was pretty solid.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some of the features, and we'll kind of go through this real quick. And what we want to do is add some screenshots just so you can see what we're talking about, because the monitoring I thought was pretty good. It gives you the status of the network. You can see your throughput. You can see all the clients connected, who's communicating the most, which APs are your top APs with all the traffic. And you can enable deep packet inspection and be able to see your top applications as well. I thought that was already a lot for an SMB in order to see what's on their network.
Yeah, their they did a really good job on the dashboard and the monitoring part of it. It's really, really nice, like you said. And you do get some radio information. You get the channels, you get the airtime. You get what do we have? Yeah, the airtime,
rate.
the packet drop.
Retry rate is actually important to me, and most vendors don't even show retry rate on the dashboard.
Yeah, retry rate and airtime, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I would say just having those features alone would help you troubleshoot any type of issues. Because if you look at even an individual access point, you could see what the Wi-Fi experience is for that access point, depending on how many clients are connected to it, right? So if you look at an access point and go, whoa, why do I have 88% Wi-Fi experience for this access point versus all the other ones? Well, if you look at the dashboard, I can see that that access point actually has a higher retry rate than all the access points. But and then that's how you can start looking at your network from an SMB's perspective, right? Without having to have such in-depth Wi-Fi knowledge, although it's important to have that Wi-Fi knowledge so you don't go down these rabbit holes and trying to figure out why something's not working. But the insight you have onto your network is incredible with UniFi, especially with the analytics, because now you can see if there's an application taking up a lot of bandwidth, for example, that is not familiar to you. Like maybe, why am I seeing such a high amount of Xbox traffic?
Yeah.
Well, on my network, it's high because I'm home all day now. I can play Xbox if I want to.
And also what I liked about the dashboard is they show you the association failures right there. So if you have clients that kind of connect, they'll tell you if it's an association timeout, if it's a DHCP timeout. And I actually had that happen to me this morning. This morning I woke up, couldn't connect to my Wi-Fi, and then I went back to the dashboard and I could see a whole bunch of DHCP timeout failures. So it's nice. They show you the information right there as you need it.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat as well because, again, a lot of vendors are trying to go towards this model, right? And some of them are trying to be more advanced. But being able to just see that, the DHCP issue, because DHCP is actually a big issue when it comes to troubleshooting. And what would be interesting to see is like why there is a DHCP timeout, like where is that happening? And whether or not that's a Wi-Fi issue or the UniFi security gateway being the issue would be interesting, because on this network that I have, it's all UniFi, but I'm getting DHCP timeouts. It's not a lot, but it's a few. But it could be because of the retry rates, for example, on some of the APs. And then you do have access into seeing how many Wi-Fi clients you have over time. So you could see how many are new clients that show up or how many are existing. And then you got like this nice graph that shows you what it looks like over time. And then even showing you how long it takes to associate. Is the average client association time 0 to 1 second? Is it 3 to 12 seconds? It kind of gives you that distribution as well. So I think having all that kind of analytics available to you is really great, especially when it's a single pane of glass for looking at everything on your network.
Yeah, and if you actually try to drill down into the different clients, they also give you quite a bit of information. They tell you the signal strength, right? So they tell you, I have 3 clients here, minus 60 dB, 61, 62. And then they give you a lot of percentage values. Like you have the Wi-Fi experience percentage. I'm not too sure what's behind that. Same for the signal, they have a percentage. So minus 60 means 77%. But they also give you, they tell you which AP it's connected to, the IP address, the device type. Do you have some sort of finger printing in there? And then they tell you the activity, how much data you've consumed through the network from these devices.
Yeah. So a lot of great information to you. You can see who are the most active clients, who's taking up the bandwidth. You could do some bandwidth throttling if you want on an SSID. So a lot of different features and monitoring that you're able to have. All right, let's see if there's anything else that we didn't talk about. I mean,
you can have some stats on your equipment as well. So if you're worried about the equipment, being that cheap, how good the hardware is really, so you can go to stat tools, and then you can monitor CPU, memory, and so on. So if you can see how your hardware is doing. They also have like a map view, which will map your network. So if you have switches, security gateways, APs, it will map the network automatically, so you can see the devices which
how they're connected.
Yeah, how they connected back to network. It's nice. There's one thing I wanted to point out though is if you have different APs, different like non-UniFi APs connected to your switch, and you have devices connected to these APs via Wi-Fi, you will not see them as Wi-Fi devices on your network.
Yeah,
they will just appear as wired devices.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to configuration, you've got all that you need. So you could set up the different radios, the WLANs. You can tell which access points will broadcast a WLAN. You could set up like switch profiles. So a switch profiles is like setting up a trunk port. So you can either make it an access port or a trunk port and tell it which networks you want to go through that port. And seeing also the RF environment on a particular AP, you could do a scan at that given point in time, and it'll tell you what the channel utilization is for any of those channels. So it's a pretty good solution. I'd say the big con is some of the cons. Like I only got two. Some of the features that you may want require a UniFi security gateway, and then if you want the full management, you need a cloud key. Those are the two cons, right? So it's not a full cloud managed Wi-Fi network; it's a hybrid cloud. And then I did find that if you wanted to use an API, there is a RESTful API with the UniFi controller, the cloud key, but I couldn't find if it was like the confirmed documentation, because it was on their Ubiquiti community wiki, and I think some user did all the findings, and it does say it was a reverse engineering project. So it was just kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you have to reverse engineer the API? But I'm pretty sure there's an API in order for all these UniFi devices to be able to connect to each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the UI looks pretty good already.
Yeah, it does. Oh, one thing we didn't talk about was the security, right? So if you wanted to use maybe WPA2 Enterprise, it does have, if you have the cloud key or the UniFi security gateway, there is a built-in radius feature. So you can enable the radius server feature and then configure radius users, and then tie those users to a WLAN for WPA2 Enterprise. Or you could also use that for remote management as well. So if someone were to, if you wanted other administrators, you could tie that into those radius users as well.
That's okay. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So far, overall solution I think is awesome. I think it's great. I would just say they need to maybe provide better support, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the type of customers they go after. They don't need a higher level of support. Maybe community forums good enough.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if I were to give an overall review or, point of view, I think it's, they nailed the monitoring piece. You get a lot of information out of your equipment. even for your switches, they tell you exactly, for instance, how much PoE one port is drawing. They give you a whole bunch of counters. They have that displayed in a very nice fashion. They give you some Wi-Fi stats. So they nailed it over there, I think, on the monitoring part.
Oh yeah.
Then then they could probably improve the ease of configuration, the upgrading, all of that. They could probably improve some of the features. They could probably improve the Wi-Fi hardware to have some Wi-Fi 6. But for the price is really good as well, right?
Yeah.
So for the price, I think you get a pretty nice set of features for SMBs. If your SMB is not too complex, I think. If you have a one-site office, I think it's really good. If you start to have multi-sites, then you have to engineer the solution a little bit more.
Yeah, you got to plan it out a little bit further instead of just deploying hardware. But for the price that you get a lot of features. You just don't get a lot of support directly from Ubiquiti. You do get a lot of good monitoring. You can get alerted for when devices go down, for example. So all of that is tracked through the cloud key. There's a lot of different alerts. You could see different notifications. And I did notice there is like this live chat with UniFi. I actually didn't see that. So they have a UniFi 24/7 live tech support. I don't even know how that works. I should probably try it out one time.
Yeah, when I click on that link in my dashboard, though, it doesn't work. So I'm not too sure.
All right, that tells you everything then. That's pretty much all we had for UniFi. If we have any more, we'll add it into the show notes. I will definitely add screenshots from what I have. You can head over to cleartosend.net/215 and we'll have everything there for you. If you guys have any questions or comments, maybe there's something you want to add to the discussion, you can do so at those show notes as well in the comment section. We'd like to know what you think about UniFi and how it compares to other solutions. Other than that, Francois, do you have anything to add?
No, just if you've used UniFi for some of your customers and you wanted to add something, please feel free to leave a comment on the page or on Twitter, or talk about your experience installing and managing UniFi network.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you guys for listening. Again, if you have any questions, go to cleartosend.net/215, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.